Good morning. I think that the presentation upstairs I would have been really interested in had I not been presenting right now. So thank you for joining me. My name is Amy. I'm from Pressbooks. We are a book publishing software, and I'm here with my colleagues John and Hyunsu. My first time meeting them along with all of you because this is my first ever live conference since joining Pressbooks. So that's why I'm very excited to be here. Today, my presentation is called What It Takes Successful Open Publishing Programs. So just a little bit about me so that you know who I am. I am not a librarian, but I am involved in Pressbooks, and we work with a lot of institutions, primarily across North America. And I have made a lot of observations during my time as a customer success manager, where I manage a lot of our clients. I've actually had the privilege of meeting some of our clients here, so that's been really exciting. And I have witnessed a lot of different institutions start from a single open ed project to full-blown open publishing programs, and I've learned a lot along the way. So although I'm not directly involved in the academic libraries, today my perspective is from someone who has witnessed this growth, and hopefully I can impart a lot of what I have learned with all of you. So from my time as a client manager, the number one thing I hear when I speak with clients and talk to them about their projects at their institutions, the number one thing I hear that has been the unanimous answer for what has been the biggest challenge is getting started. And I know, because I have worked with a lot of librarians, instructional designers, and teaching staff and faculty, that you are working more hours than you are probably getting paid for. You are probably giving a lot of your personal time, and you probably are wearing about 1 million hats and are supporting a variety of different people and have a lot of different work that you have to take care of. So my goal for you today, my goal for the session today is for you to walk away from this session feeling like your barrier to starting an open publishing program at your institution has been somewhat lowered and you feel a little bit more confidence in getting started. So today, for the next 20 minutes, I have broken things down into sort of 4 sections: developing your mission, refining your scope, selecting tools and resources, and advocating and incentivizing others. And while these are stuff that these are points that you've probably heard of before, and some of them might sound a little bit trite, by breaking things down and including examples that I have heard from other institutions, hopefully it gives you sort of an overview on where you can sort of get started. And this presentation will apply to you if you're from a very small community college or if you're from a large R1 or whatever, D1. I'm not super familiar with the American institutional language, but regardless of what kind of institution you're at, hopefully you'll be able to take something away from the session today, because we support everyone from community colleges all the way up to institutions that support over 100,000 students. So the first thing, yes, this one is probably the most trite, but there is a bigger purpose to this than you think. So your mission is obviously slightly different than your goals. So your mission is a direction that you want to move towards and a statement that represents what you're striving to do. So to what end are you starting this program? Why is it worth you giving so much time and energy of your week into starting this program? And that gives you a sense of purpose and a reason for why. So your goals might change, obviously, especially in the academic world. I know there's a lot of, funding and staffing turnovers and stuff like that. But having a mission allows you to stay focused in one goal, so that even if all of these other variables change, you're able to focus in on why you started this in the first place. And I think that for the most part, from what I have seen, having that mission statement allows for that focus and for a team effort to collectively go somewhere and to be able to start a successful program. The next thing is refining your scope. So I like to think that if you were to refine your scope and have a mission, you'd be able to create goals that suit your program. So obviously there are 4 very important factors: money, time, human resources, and interests. John and I actually have been conducting a lot of client interviews lately, just so that we have an idea of how to make our organization run better and also how to better support you. And and these are the things that we hear over and over and over again. And I don't need to make you more familiar with that. I know you're already thinking about it too. And it's less of a matter of, you can dream as big as you want, but by determining how big should your scope be, it allows you to stay focused and it allows you to create tangible goals. So asking really big questions like, how big is your institution and what kind of expectations are being placed on you? Are you if you're a community college or even a big university, are you in a larger consortium or are you an independent school? Is there already an interest for open at your institution, or is this something that you are having to push for by yourself? Is there a higher emphasis on learning, or is there a higher emphasis on research? And also looking at the support around you. Is your department supporting you, or are you doing it alone? All of these questions obviously have a really big role to play in how you should be defining your goals, and taking the time to reflect on these questions before starting your program can often bear a lot of fruit as you're going along in your program management. Along with that are selecting some tools. So you can see there's a bunch of vendors on the right-hand side. So you have a lot of options here, and determining what tool will help you follow your mission. So depending on what your mission is, are you looking to do scholarly monographs? Are you looking to publish journals? Or are you looking to produce exclusively large-scale open educational resources? You want to be answering these questions before you select the tools, especially because it will be a big time and chunk of how much you commit to training and how much you commit your money and time to it, right? So you probably want something that will A, follow your values, B, support the work that you're doing, and C, accomplish what's in your scope. And there are a lot of us on the right-hand side. My colleague Hyunsu actually carried about 40 pounds worth of books into this country. So come and pick one up. I think there's pencil crayons too. So it's a great way to get to come meet a lot of people and see what kind of tool best suits your purposes. This is, oh, sorry, I have my laptop here and the slides here, and I've realized I've been on the same slide for a long time. So this is personally my favorite slide. This is the critical resources slide. It looks a little bit convoluted, but I did spend about 30 minutes formatting it, and I'm particularly proud of it. But all of them are linked. So if you go on to the slides, you can click on them. If there is nothing else you take away from this session, these links are super helpful. I personally have looked through and used them all the time. And I think they're great. So my favorite personal part about being an open are the resources that are available. And I've broken them sort of down into 4 distinct, I want to say, categories. Firstly, starting with OER libraries. So my favorite part about, actually, I keep on saying my favorite, but one of the best parts about open and OERs are that there's 2 kinds of examples in the OER world. There are the examples that are practical. So if you are a math instructor and you want to teach intermediate algebra, you'll be able to clone an openly licensed book or revise an openly licensed book. And then there's also the OERs that are particularly meant to help program managers and people getting involved in open. So on the right-hand side, I've included links to different repositories that you can go to see open educational materials. And also Rebus Community, who is a nonprofit. They just published a book called OER Starter Kit from Program Managers, and there are chapters within it from real life program managers who have been very successful, OER champions who've written chapters, and they've put together a book. So that came at an excellent time because it's sort of a blown up, really well put together version of this presentation. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention. The second thing is open communities. So listservs, discussion boards, conferences, as we are here now, and joining and starting learning communities. I personally myself get an update from listservs every single day. And even very recently, there was a question floating around about Pressbook sustainability, for example. And that was a really refreshing way to see how program managers from all across the country have helmed their projects. And another example is I was just having an interview with from a program manager from an R1 school, and she was saying that she has a lot of funding but not a lot of support. And what she did with that funding is, first of all, for their project, they hired a lot of copy editors and peer reviewers, which is great, but she found that she was lacking support for to manage the program. So what she did is she set up a learning community where in her email, I think she set up a link to say, let's start a learning community together. And that way, not only does it relieve the burden from her having to do all the work, it also is a great way to share with others about open and to get them involved. So there's a lot of strategies that you can use there, or you can just look around on listservs and discussion boards and see how other people are joining in the conversation. And there's some links to communities and listserv places on the right. And then sort of the more practical example from that is open practitioners, policies, and projects. So these are direct places where you can go to rely on for support. So specific OER champions, other librarians, or those who have led projects previously, you can also definitely take inspiration from them. My view is that you can reinvent the wheel, but why reinvent the wheel when other people have done that work before you and are willing to share that work with you? I mean, by all means, if you want to reinvent the wheel, go for it. But I think that there are so many, especially because now open sort of in all states, I think that there are people who are more than willing to share their knowledge with you. And by reaching out to them, I'm sure that they would be very happy to help, as they have been with their time with us and taking the time to interview us, which is how we have this presentation. So that is what I wanted to mention. And also I know that in the previous panel, they were talking about policies and different projects as well. And each institution has their own set. So that's also very helpful to keep in mind and to look around for those. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is training and professional development. There are many different kinds of, many different examples of this, so guided or asynchronous. There are a couple of examples of specifically guided programs, Textbook Success Program, the OEN program, as well as the Portland Polytechnic Professional Program in Open Education. All of those are excellent professional programs, and I think that it's really great that there are particular programs dedicated to this. But there are also asynchronous programs online that you are able to follow along with. So hopefully that was a very quick overview of all of these resources, but I hope that they are helpful for you as you begin to start your open publishing program. I was just cracking a joke about how all the material that I have had for today's session has mostly been gathered from because I'm not a librarian myself. So all of the material that I gathered today were from the program managers themselves. So it is truly sort of a reciprocal learning community. And I think that that's really wonderful. So this is sort of the last point, advocating, incentivizing, and repeating. I think that this is probably the most important thing that you have to do. I think that something I've realized not only in my professional life, but also in my personal life is that no one is willing to advocate for the work that you do more than yourself. And making a case for why your program is important to your institution is a real key to making it work. And I have some specific points here that might be helpful. So first things first is obviously, I think targeting faculty and appealing to students is something that we hear of all the time. But getting students, for example, involved beyond the scope of, hey, here's a free textbook, I think this will help you and it won't cost you any money. By having students really involved in the discourse of open and indicating to them how it's helpful beyond the zero cost factor can really help them get involved. Because as we know, at the end of the day, students are the university's primary customers. And I know for a fact that for a lot of instructors, having students get involved in open directly has been a really crucial point to keeping their program alive. The second thing is targeting specific faculty or departments. I think that catching a wave with open is often hard, especially for librarians who are on a very small team. I was recently talking to an instructor who said that he was speaking to one French teacher, and then soon the OER infiltrated into the French department. And I think that's a really great example of how to sort of create momentum within a single place that might be fruitful. And then the last two things I have written on the bottom is pitching open, calling out. I think Dr. Smith yesterday raised a really fair point about how open is sometimes very quiet. And I think that is a large part of the problem. People don't know about open. And I think that, including, I was talking to someone on the West Coast and they were saying that they shared links to conferences and webinars on their library website, and all of a sudden their engagement with open went way up. So chances are there might be people who are not interested in open because they genuinely aren't, but there might be a chance that people just don't know it exists. So that's also an important part. And lastly, sharing and measuring your work is also super critical. I think that something commonly that I see is when people see a physical textbook, let's say from Pearson, they look at the physical textbook and they think, wow, this is so much work. Look at this 500-page textbook. But if a book has been, let's say, revised and, torn apart and put back together, people don't recognize how much work that is, even though it's so much work to make the book make sense, and to have all of these editors and people working on the book together. And by measuring the engagement with your book and actually measuring how much impact it's made for your class, even if it's just one book, it can make a huge difference. So I wanted to point that out as well. And just some things to keep in mind with each task, with each of these things, is to reflect on what you have, determine what you need, and make each goal small is really important, because my last slide is that the key to success is staying sustainable. So I'm gonna quote David Wiley here, but he did say that sustainability in OER is the ability for that OER's the ability for the OER to meet its goals. So by keeping your goals small, you will be able to keep a program that is manageable to you, and you set goals by remembering what's in your scope and remembering your mission. As a personal sort of anecdote, when we see clients who stop using Pressbooks, for example, the number one reason is not for a reason that I would have ever imagined. People stop using Pressbooks because they will leave the institution, or someone who is helming the project will leave the institution, and then all of a sudden there's no one else to take on that work. And that is a real shame, not only for the program and for the students who are benefiting, or for the faculty who are benefiting from using open, but also for that librarian who's put in all of their time and effort into putting this program together. And I think that that is a really great way to end the presentation on that kind of somber but really realistic note. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you. And here are some examples of getting into the world of open. Some of them are direct resources, some of them are stories. I personally have read them all myself, and they are really, really, really wonderful. So I would really recommend that you take the time to check that out. And that's it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me.